if someone could tell me it's a bullish market, I mean, technically, I don't see how that's actually possible.
I track planetary cycles. It's not a causal phenomenon, it's all correlation, so I'm not saying anything is making anything happen, but I look out to see when sentiment, when world events are going to change, and middle of May looks like really bad.
My God, what happened to Luna?
We are seeing literally trillions being wiped off the crypto market cap.
It's all gone, guys. I lost everything.
Look for short entries.
I suppose I'll be a bull then.
Dear crypto community, blockchain buddies across the globe, welcome back to the No BS blockchain channel built with the for the community. Yay! All right, here we go. So first, I would like to give a huge round of applause to one of the top YouTubers in crypto, all the way from the US, who flew in, was it like Paris last week and just arrived in London?
Something like that.
So let's give it up for Rob Wall from Digital Asset News. Next up, a face that you know. He loves cars. He's the British bad boy. Let's give it up for the Martini guy! Also flying in from overseas, we have, finally guys, women, I want to hear as loud as possible. Give it up for Maren Altman! I promise you guys we'll try to have more women. I'm embarrassed as well, and next time we'll have more women representing for us, the community. Very important. Thank you so much, Maren, for joining us. Next up, all the way from the Netherlands, Dusty BC! Last but not least, a very good friend of mine, CEO of Crypto Slate, one of the biggest media channels in crypto. Let's give it up for Nate! This panel influences together over 1 million people on YouTube alone and multi-million people across all social media channels. So it's amazing. Guys, I feel super blessed to have such amazing people on this panel, and I really hope you enjoy this. So without further ado, right now, the markets are bleeding. There are many big issues in terms of the macroeconomy. We have here bears versus bulls who would like to kick off on taking a position and just sharing how you feel about the current markets.
So right now, if someone could tell me it's a bullish market, I mean, technically, I don't see how that's actually possible. I would say it's a bullish or it's a bearish market right now. We're in a bearish slide. The problem is I don't see this turning around anytime soon, especially with the macro. I mean, we've got a lot of issues going on with supply chain, China getting shut down with the coronavirus again. We've got certain issues with inflation. I don't believe it's 8.5%. It's a little bit more than that. And also, I just don't see some of the impetus that could actually push us forward anytime soon for a bullish endeavor. However, this is where millionaires and billionaires are made, in the bear market. And just like some pretty smart people have said, anybody can do the investing. Anybody has the brain power. The real question is, do you have the stomach for it? And when I got in 2017, I thought I was a genius. And in 2018, everything crashed down, just like it did in 2014, and just like it's going to do again. So again, if you can just stick around, I think you'll be okay. It's just, how long can you do this?
I suppose I'll be a bull then, which is, I mean, obviously Bitcoin isn't in a particularly bullish place right now. It's pretty clear. It keeps going down. Every time I say it's going to go up, it keeps just, sticking a finger up in my face and going, no, I'm not going up, I'm going to go down. And there's only so long that can go on. And of course, I think there's a lot more people that are more pessimistic on Bitcoin than what they necessarily should be. But at the same time, I still think it'll be a solid 6 months until there's kind of more global certainty. You don't need everything to be going up, but you need certainty. And you don't get certainty in markets when you have a very angry Russia being a bit of a dick. And so, I mean, more than a bit, but we can get into it's a crypto thing. Anyway, but essentially, with everything that's going on in the world and the fact that we have inflation being in real terms, I mean, when I bought my car last year in September, I remember going and a tank of fuel were 80 quid. tank of fuel is now £160 at my local petrol station. This is 100%. Now, of course, your inflation is not affecting everything in the same way, but your essentials have become suddenly incredibly expensive. And I do think there is merit to the fact that there can only be so long whereby people can afford to sell their Bitcoin in order to pay for these things, because essentially what you're experiencing right now is people selling off their assets in order to pay for the cost of living rising. But when you have more global certainty and the cost of living starts decreasing and coming back down to normal levels, and you see oil's price isn't even all that high. It's not been going up like crazy. Everyone talks about it's been going up. Look at an oil chart, anyone, look at it right now. It's the government and the petrol stations that are scamming everyone. That's literally what it is. And so it's just, yeah, it boggles my mind that we have this cost of living, but actually it's just a bunch of greedy people just keep putting their prices up. And you have, yes, your supply chain issues coming from China, but as a nation, we're not wholly reliant on these other countries. We, as a nation, we're more of a net producer than we are a net consumer. We make a lot of the things and have a lot of the things already here. And of course, we grow a lot of vegetables. We import a lot from Spain and stuff, but, you know, point is, when we're not a net consumer, we're a net producer, it does mean that over time, you're going to start to see just everything will get better. I think within 6 months, I'm quite confident with everything that I've looked at, and summer's going to be an interesting time. I do think we'll have an altcoin season though, and because you don't need an altcoin. See, an altcoin season doesn't necessarily need to coincide with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin gets boring, like when did DeFi season first come around? September 2020. Yeah, and DeFi took off. Bitcoin flat, going down. Nobody cared. Bitcoin was $10,000. But DeFi was just going straight to the moon. So what I'm trying to say is I think that people will find other areas in which to make money. And so, although Bitcoin might be going very well, there's a lot of other opportunity in the market. So, like, I made my wealth sitting through a bear market, participating in the altcoin space, investing in Swissborg at like 0.000 whatever the hell it was, and then it goes up to $1.64, and you've done like a 300x on your investment. Like, it's that kind of time now. You're seeing this. I was speaking to I don't mean to go on, I'm just going to say, I was speaking to a project the other day on the phone for a solid hour and a half. And this is a project that launched only 3 months ago, and it's already lost 98% of its value. They've still got $4.2 million that is earning them $900,000 per year in income. This means that they don't ever need to generate a profit. All they need to use is that $900,000 a year to develop a product, which is a huge amount of money to develop any kind of product. You can develop something really good with that. So over time, you're going to start to see these projects actually becoming useful, and these coins that are now 98% down, shooting 200, 300x's in a very short period of time, kind of like what Swissborg did, because they spent so long building a utility. So I'm a bull, but I'm like in dormant mode. Yeah. Oh.
I, similar note, completely agree that short-term, medium-term bearish doesn't really take a genius or anyone that well-versed in technical analysis to see things going down, and not necessarily that indicative of upturn in the short term. With the geopolitical climate and, as we've discussed, the uncertainty, the person and the retail, and I think retail is a really good gauge of this, both at a top and a bottom signal, because retail is no longer thinking, where can I put my extra stimulus checks? It's how do I pay for food, goods, services, the cost of living. It is not on their mind to even like those of us who are posting videos. When market is down, views tend to be down, because that is the viewer that would have been investing and driving up the price is now thinking about other areas of their life, watching the news instead of watching crypto, etc. So that retail sentiment is no longer there to buy trillions of dollars worth of sheep. It's much more who is actually sticking around and providing the underlying value and accumulating, even if price is going down. Similar as you've spoken about, it's the time for building and focusing on other things. Even I would say that instead of the alt season, we had an NFT run. I think that's where that liquidity went, and I don't necessarily see a huge amount of overall market upturn. I think that like there's different projects right now that are really strange and niche and taking off, but that will always happen on an emerging asset. It's what I do, which differentiates me, is I track planetary cycles. It's not a causal phenomenon. It's all correlation. So I'm not saying anything is making anything happen, but I look out to see when world events are going to change. And middle of May looks like really bad. Middle of May does look pretty bad. I've been looking at the late April, middle of May period for months now, and I'm like, this looks really bad. I think that geopolitical events, that literal holidays in other countries that are expected to indicate major issues in the world early May, does lead me to be very, very, I say cautious, but as a trader, like I'm looking for short entries, so not too, cautious means for me look for short entries into middle of May. However, after May 15th, there are things that indicate major shifts in the world. I think a major repricing is due, and even if the market goes up, there's quantitative tightening going on right now. Like, you're simply not going to see the helicopter money liquidity that we did for 2020 to 2021, to where even if market improves, that might mean lower dollar value denomination. So even though I think that there will be a pretty intense, difficult first 2 weeks of May that we're in right now, after that there are adjustments that look like an upturn over the summer. However, with that upturn, I do not mean all-time high whatsoever. In fact, I guess upturn right now could mean staying in the range after we maybe go down to like 28, 29. So that's where I'm at.
Very nice. Give me a round of applause. All right. Dusty?
Yeah, it's funny to hear these different opinions, specifically because they're next to me, so I can't be too critical. But I think I would mostly agree with Martini Guy, except for the 6 months thing. I would say there's always opportunity, and it's a definition thing. What is a bear market? What is a bull market? The more you zoom out, the more bullish that Bitcoin starts to get. If you look on a monthly chart, things look really amazing, but the more you kind of go down the time slots there, it looks a little bit more bearish. Short term, I would say I'm also not so excited about it, but if we're talking about altcoins, I would say there's an opportunity almost every single day. We had, I think, quite a couple of ones that have done really well for the last couple of weeks. And most likely, regardless of what the market is looking like, there will be altcoins that are going to pop with 200x, 300x still. Regarding the comment of these 98% down cryptos, the majority of them I don't think will pick back up the pace next round. Bitcoin, I think, will come back up to levels. We just don't know the exact time zones. For example, we have this current situation with the crazy inflation, and you might say, well, for that reason, people are going to hoard Bitcoin. Theoretically speaking, yes, but we've seen this direct correlation between the S&P, NASDAQ, and Bitcoin, which kind of shows, okay, if they're going to go for crazy interest rate hikes, economy is going to take kind of a downturn, why would Bitcoin all of a sudden go up? There needs to be some, in my opinion, bigger shift where people start to realize the real use case for the Bitcoin and start to really appreciate it more before it will actually start basically following the idea which we all think it should. And for that reason, well, 6 months, maybe the whole virus thing will be even worse in 6 months. If the economy does worse because of all the interest rate hikes, well, I think Bitcoin will kind of keep going down as well. So I'm not sure about the time frame, but I'm not so excited for the near term, I would say.
Yes.
So full disclosure, I'm not a trader. I got into crypto in 2015, and I've always had a pretty long-term view that this is eventually going to replace the traditional financial system, or at least make it better in many other ways. I think over the past few years, we've seen that some of the biggest banks in the world have announced that they're going to begin offering Bitcoin to their customers. There's been a tremendous amount of bullish catalysts over the past few years, probably the biggest of which I would say is Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy buying so much Bitcoin. They own over 120,000 Bitcoin now. There is a potentially very bearish scenario. If Bitcoin were to go below 21,000, then MicroStrategy could get margin called. That would be like the worst case, the worst case scenario. And even then, over the long term, Bitcoin is going to recover from that shit. Like there's too many bullish factors, and there's too many reasons why crypto is so much better than the traditional financial system. So I see Bitcoin by the end of the decade being between $500,000 and $1 million. Michael Saylor thinks it's going to be between $4.5 and $5 million. He's obviously one of the most bullish people in the world, probably. He's obviously, backing it up big time. But on a daily basis, we hear so much negative global financial news that is really, it's hurting the mainstream person. It's making retail a lot less interested to get into crypto. One kind of negative thing that came out the other day was that it was after Coinbase NFTs launched, it was said that there was only about 150 people actively using their platform, with only about 1,500 people totally who had signed up at the time. So I think people that kind of look at NFTs, that can be some additional opportunity when the crypto market is going down. It's really hard to say right now. NFTs it's a very tricky thing obviously there are a lot of big brands and kind of mainstream people that want to get involved in NFTs, probably seeing it more as a cash grab, similar to 2016, 2017 ICO season. Overall, I'm bearish for the next probably 6 to 12 months. I think what Jordan said was pretty smart actually about how there are going to be other areas of the altcoin market which do see pumps in that time. We've seen a lot of action in the GameFi and the play to earn space and the move to earn space. So we'll see mini pumps, but unless Bitcoin can go up in that time period as well, those coins are going to come down huge percentages. As news, we see a lot of headlines every day. We see a lot of news. I try not to take a position one way or the other that the Bitcoin market or the crypto market's going to go down or up, but instead focus on the 3 to 5 year cycle.
Thank you so much, Nate. Woo! One more question from me, guys, and then you will become the host of the show. So following up on what you said, Nate, can you please share, all of you, what is the most bearish potential event? What is the most bullish potential event that has happened recently or maybe will happen in the future? And more importantly, 3, what actions can we take? Because all of you are kind of have this consensus of saying there's always opportunity everywhere. What can people do as of today to take advantage of those opportunities? Who would like to kick off?
Most bearish situation, I think, would be war escalation, because that drives, okay, need cash, need food, need necessities. That's like a given. I think even rumored escalation, I think that's the most tentative thing, because no matter where anyone is in the world, they want to have cash on hand to be able to respond to life in a way that, you don't want. The last thing you want is your money locked away in an asset that you could liquidate in the moment when you need it. So I think that's the most bearish situation. In a strange way, I think the most bullish situation would be a geopolitical trend towards hoarding Bitcoin, not in the way of a country legalizing it as tender. Frankly, I don't think most people care that much about, this and that country, legalizing it as tender. I think actually, if countries begin to accumulate because they see some sort of the likelihood of the economic warfare in this stopping payment rails, leading to economic sanctions stopping international payment rails, I think that if enough large-scale countries thinking, not just even Russia saying they'll accept Bitcoin for oil, countries paying each other in Bitcoin, we need a huge geopolitical catalyst, because with institutions already on board, that's dictating market structure. It's dictating kind of some of the derivatives. You can even see it's no longer a parabola, it's more equity style curves. That's the institutional interest, I think. It needs to be countries involved on a high stakes level where it's literally a mad dash to buy, because even retail, I don't think it'll be a support of Bitcoin. It would be a driver of altcoins, because retail is I don't want a 2x, I want a 100x. I'm not buying Bitcoin, I'm buying this and that altcoin. What I think is likely to happen is, in the short term, you asked, the third part was what's likely to happen. Short term, I think a bit of crisis middle of May. I think over the summer, there might actually be something that drives free speech in coordination with Bitcoin. There's a planetary transit happening that each 12 years that it happens corresponds to whistleblower events and free speech. Last time it happened in 2010 was Instagram was founded, 2008 to 2009. Instagram was founded, developed, and released. WikiLeaks scandals blew up in the news, and the Arab Spring took place. And that's a pretty good example of the free speech and anti-censorship kind of route that it has literally been ramping up and has been predicted by myself and people that study this as a focus. I think that Bitcoin could play a role in the sovereignty or free speech aspect of it. I don't have the knowledge of, or I don't know how it could play, but based on the corresponding cycles I'm seeing, and how I agree with you all. I don't think it looks like hugely great or anything for 12 months, let alone what we saw, but that I see things being less bad over the summer. I think that could play a role. I think Bitcoin could be used in a way that is more about even like its roots, or kind of the anti-censorship aspect. I think it could play a role, which is strange, but with these things overlaying, that seems to be what happens. But I think boring crab probably for a while. Yeah.
Maren is bringing the heat today. Wow. Nice answer. Who's up next?
I can go. So we really need another Michael Saylor, someone like a Michael Saylor, or we also need an El Salvador that's working out better than El Salvador. There's been reports that have come out that a lot of the citizens are actually not taking advantage of the El Salvador, the Lightning Network payment rails that exist for it. That there's really, if the price of Bitcoin were to go up, I think it's highly likely that a lot of the citizens would probably see that as an opportunity to start accepting and actually holding Bitcoin, not switching back to US dollars. But that's not happening right now. There's certainly a lot of kind of just global uncertainty, and specifically in El Salvador, where that's kind of looking like, I'm not going to say it's a failed experiment, but it's certainly not like the glorious, successful experiment that everyone was hoping it would be. There's a few other countries that are actually starting to begin considering whether to accept. There's an area of the Congo, I believe, Central African Republic, that is going to start trialing Bitcoin. So we need to see other massively bullish catalysts like MicroStrategy or countrywide exception for Bitcoin.
Nice one, Nate. Thank you very much.
I actually think, to add to Nate's point, if Apple just put a wallet on there that was pre-installed on phones, then Bitcoin would just shoot up like a rocket. But to be honest, like, the new iPhone is in September, so maybe. Anyway, I'm gonna not focus on what these guys are talking about, because I think that they've kind of covered it quite well. But you also added within your question about where is kind of money going to be made, I guess. What's the point in sticking around? And how to make money. And this is what I guess I'm quite good at. And I would say that the way to make money is not from trading. Sometimes the best trade is no trade. In fact, in probably a solid 50% of times when you're looking at Bitcoin going, I'm fancying this, and you should just go, no, just wait 2 hours and see if you still fancy it. Because in most cases, you're probably better off sat on the sidelines, especially in a market where you're getting bounced around. The temptation is, if you're using leverage, to use even higher leverage, and then before you know it, you've blown your entire account. And I've done that plenty of times to know that you should not be doing that. But I've also, made plenty of profitable trades. Ultimately, when you're doing a trade, the key is don't use cross leverage. Anyway, how to make money in crypto? Send messages to crypto companies. You've got a lot of crypto companies out there right now that are short on staff. They need people to help develop applications. They need people to help market the things. They need people, but they don't have the money to pay everybody. Find projects before they launch, volunteer your services before they're popular, and then try and take 0.1% of the supply for your services, because a lot of these projects, I've got people working for me that are DMing projects all the time before they launch and saying, look, I can help you out with this, 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 and this. And can I take, 0.1% of the supply of this coin in return? They say yes, because generally these things, they need help, they need experience. And if you've got experience and you're quite good at helping people and you're willing to commit time and dedicate to it, there's a huge lack of that in crypto. And so there's this huge opportunity. And say you take 0.1% of the supply of a coin that has 100 million market cap, you've got $1 million. Yeah. Right there, that's the easiest way to become a millionaire, is just to take 0.1% of the supply for an advisory contract. And you can do that with 20, 30, 40 different projects over the span of a year. Suddenly you're worth a lot of money. And so this is a really good way for anybody to make money, is by helping the industry, by offering your services for free. People are too keen to charge 3, 4, 5 grand a month for their services, when really, look, eyes on the prize. The prize is if you actually manage to get that deal and get that contract and make that project perform well from your advice being correct and your advice being good. And actually, like, if you have a business that's doing marketing, for example, offer your services for free. Like, you will make so much more money than charging them. So this is a great way of generating revenue in a bear market, and I'm seeing it over and over again right now from the amount of people that I speak to. People need help, because if they spend and spend and spend and Bitcoin doesn't come back, then they've got a runtime basically of 2 years. But if they take on volunteers, they have a much longer runtime. And the key is, if you're approaching projects that already exist, then is volunteer services and trying to get some tokens off them as a reward. If you're volunteering your services before the token has launched, that's where you make the big bucks. So yeah, just cheat codes, there you go. Who wants the next?
Yeah, good points. Never thought about it. I might actually try that with my YouTube channel. So first of all, when we were talking about the bearish sentiment, I looked out on the crowd. I saw a lot of long faces. So I just have a question for everybody real quick. So who here has gotten into crypto from 2011? Anybody? No. 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, here we go. 18, 19, 20, 20. Okay, that's the, okay. So now I get it. So when you're going through this, like a lot of us up here, we've all gone through that same process. We've gone through these markets and we've seen it crash before. And back in 2013, when we had the first run, that was awesome. Then it crashed. In 2014, everybody thought, that's it, crypto's done. And 15, 16, and everybody made all their money by dollar cost averaging. 2017 came around, went up, and then it crashed again. And that year, 2018, everybody thought, that's it, it's done. And what happened again? 19, 20, 21. And here we are in 22. If we're taking a look at 4-year cycles, it's the same type of thing. So for all those people who are new, I can tell you like the 19, 20, 21, I get why the long face is there. Because I had the exact same face you guys had when I lost all my money in 2018. So I know exactly how it goes, but I will tell you, you can do what my man just said here, just to contact those people. Some of the easiest things is just like this. I remember buying Bitcoin, $3,500, $4,000. Ethereum at 120. I remember buying Cardano, 6, 7 cents for years. Because in 2018, we didn't have the rails, we didn't have the people, we didn't have the Paul Tudor Jones, we didn't have the banks, we didn't have the BlackRocks, we didn't have a sovereign country that came in and actually used it as legal tender. This is the time right now to be in this market. Having said all that, all those things that we talked about, not financial rules.
Nice, wow.
I would say I mostly agree with Martini Guy. The best thing to do in crypto is certainly either approach or build yourself. If there was one thing I would say that's... Yourself. Yeah, exactly, he is the crypto saving expert. If there's one thing that's nearly guaranteed, not guaranteed, that has a high probability of winning in crypto, it's to build or participate. Now it's hard though. Martini Guy here, he doesn't kind of specify that if you approach 100 crypto projects, if you're not somebody that's pretty well known or anything, if you have one follower, chance of response is 1 in, let's say 100 or so. So it's not easy, but if you do get that chance, it'll most likely kind of snowball. Because the moment you help one, you can help another and kind of refer back to number one. And you also start to get more connections in that space. And that's why I like crypto meetups. I don't really go to listen to anybody, really, actually. I just come to kind of talk to people and see what they do, maybe how you can work together in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's what a lot of people here do as well, kind of see how you can grow yourself. And so if I had to give one answer, best way to grow, meet more people, see how you can work something out. I've really gotten a lot of crazy projects because of Martini Guy, purely because he knows the right people, as an example. And yeah, that's purely because of going to the meetups and meeting more people. And that's also how I think you can get invited, or you can kind of talk your way into working with a new project or something like that. Because otherwise it's very hard. I'm not sure why, if my let's say my dad, for example, were to try getting into a crypto project now, how he would start step one. Because you need a lot of things. But I think going to meetups and talking to people is the best.
Nice, Dusty, nice. All right, yep, you ready to catch? Ready to catch? All right, here we go.
All working all right, yeah? Okay, Mine is more of a food for thought than anything else, a consideration, mainly directed to you, sir, as you spoke about Bitcoin needing more utility, which I think is a ridiculous statement. It has substantial utility, and its ethos is all about a store of wealth. It's digital gold, so it doesn't require any further utility. My personal opinion is the big, massive corporations, the people with the big money, want to control the Bitcoin, and they're letting us minnows play with the altcoins. But they want that for themselves. That's my opinion.
Oh, I saved you. Want to respond?
Okay. I found that quite interesting. I can't say that I agree. I do think that Nate is a big Bitcoin, and Nate's massively, and he's been in Bitcoin since I was in pajamas. Not pajamas. I mean, that's probably yesterday. Anyway, the point is, we have Michael Saylor, but there is so much selling pressure. You need a lot of Michael Saylors because there is so much selling pressure in the market right now. Like, try and soak that up. You see every sell wall, these buy walls that get sucked up in a few seconds for like $200 million, and just like bam. Like, Michael Saylor can't afford to keep buying through that. It no matter how much money he borrows from whoever. It's interesting. Who actually is Michael Saylor borrowing money
Right,
from?
I'm wondering, I'm like, where are you getting this?
I bet it's not friendly money. Yeah. That means, yeah. Either way, interesting engagement.
All right, who wants to next question?
It's about time that you guys got back into social impact investing. And you're talking about Bitcoin and the world. That's all you talk about. Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Why not use the blockchain to do some good? Because last year was a breakout year. You know, 65% of all purchasing from consumers was women. What a fantastic statistic. And last year was a year when the world became aware. Everyone's aware of. Everybody you talk to is crypto curious now. So, but they will buy things that are social impact orientated. 72% of the world is caring for someone at any one time. So my question to you is, do you not think the next wave after NFTs and all the rest of it will be actually social impact investing with crypto in some way that will help us all get through this chaos?
I mean, I could quite happily take that one again and say, I don't think there will be a hype wave for social impact investing, because I've met so many people now, and on the whole, people are nasty. Like, they're not friendly. Like, people aren't doing good things for each other. People are out there, every man for himself. And so I like the idea behind social impact investing, and I think it'll catch on, but I don't think it'll catch on in the same way as something that you can profit from, like DeFi or NFTs, because ultimately people want to make money from nothing. That's kind of the point in most cases. Like, what NFTs, 99% of them, in fact 100% of NFTs are a scam. They're all, the whole point of NFTs is like, let's just make some money off pictures of monkeys and stuff like that. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what is one of the good things about crypto. It doesn't have to make sense. So that's also a nice point. But I won't stop taking questions.
No, that's great. I love your blunts. Next one, I just promised the gentleman.
Would you like to take this off me?
Okay. Oh, it works.
Oh, yeah,
Sweet.
you've got. You take it off me.
Very easy question. How low does Bitcoin have to drop before you?
Just 2 seconds. Yeah. Coin Bureau is in the house, guys.
I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy you're looking for. These are not the droids you're looking for. Yeah, sorry. So, at what price? Like, how low does Bitcoin have to drop before you get, like, before each of you, like, at what price before you start to panic for each of you? Because you've all kind of been in the market, obviously, for longer, I think, than most people here, especially Martini Man. So I know, but like, if it goes to like $100, are you still going to be like, yeah, let's do it? And all the miners are like going bankrupt, because I think like in January they said if it drops below 34,000, then a lot of these really leveraged like publicly traded mining companies, because it's super vicious competition. I think it's something like 2 years, even the crypto mining companies that were around 2 years ago are no longer here, or something like that. There's some crazy statistic. But anyway, so that's my question.
Yeah. Similarly, I think to everyone here, no, I wouldn't like panic, because, you know, number go up, number go down is just red or green respond in a certain way. But in the sentiment of that, where I would be a little bit like, wow, that was severe, is if it goes under 20K, because that was the 2017 cycle top, and usually we don't go back underneath that. So that, I wouldn't panic, but I would be like, Oh, okay. Like wow. All right. So that's the rate at which I would be alarmed. Yeah.
I think if it actually drops significantly, eventually I'll just accept my faith and just accept the fact that I'm getting poorer. Okay, it is what it is, because I don't think I'd ever really panic out or anything. Regarding the mining, I think they'll figure out a way, because the lower the price goes, the more competition will leave. So is it really a big problem? No. We saw China with the crazy ban. They moved Texas, the other countries around China. There'll always be a way. Unless some crazy bigger company, like what he said about MicroStrategy getting liquidated or something along those lines, if that would ever happen.
That'd be so fun. Yeah, like it'd just go whoa, bang, bang.
Yeah, that would be pretty scary.
Buying opportunity.
Putting a buy order like 20 grand, 999. So like the second they're liquid, no, I would go much lower. No point. But
put it at $1.
yeah,
There'd be lots
at
of
that
selling
point.
there.
I was going to say, like, if that happens, if we keep going down, it'd be like in 2008 when we had the market crash. And then all of a sudden, all these houses weren't worth anything. The ones who made all the money were the ones that swooped in and said, you know what, I see a great opportunity. And those are the people right now that are the next multi-millionaires and even billionaires. So if we go to a certain point, at some point you got to say to yourself, well, let's just say, for example, I don't think it's going to happen, that Bitcoin goes to zero. Isn't there some pretty good utility in blockchain technology, and in essence, like what you said, sir, for ESG and things like that? I mean, we can put smart contracts. There is some pretty good blockchain technology right now where you can actually put on the deed. You can get your deed of trust. You can file it with the city. You can do everything with real estate and contracts. You can do digital IDs. You can do a lot of different things. And as far as like transportation and things like that. So I don't see how, even if we had one sector, which I don't think it's going to happen, but the technology is, I think, what people will believe in and what they'll gravitate towards. So I don't think this market will ever fade away.
I've been dying to ask that question. Oh my God, that was so long. But I am here finally. So, Jordan, coming back to the NFTs, you just said it that 100% of them are scams. And yeah, obviously, buying a picture of a monkey for $3 million sounds like a scam. But let's look at the normal art. You have just regular art.
It's a scam as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a picture on the wall, which is basically worth nothing because it's worth probably $10 and a little bit of paint on it. But me and you, we agree on it that it's worth millions. Yeah, and I sell it to you because you think it's good and you pay me millions. So what's the difference between this and an NFT?
I for a video, I bought a piece of artwork. And the process of buying a piece of artwork, there's a lot of shysters. They're all scammers. And ultimately, one thing that I learned about art is, I didn't know this before. I thought like when an artist makes a picture, they make one and then they sell it. Turns out the artist makes 100 and sells them all for 50 grand a pop, and then sells the first one for like $1 million. And they do this over and over and over again. And the interesting thing is, photographers do it as well. And I just found that the whole entire art industry is no different than NFTs. It's just one of it is digital and the other one is physical, and they're essentially the exact same scam. And it depends on if you can actually, of course, not all art is a scam and not all NFTs are a scam. Some things have utility, but ultimately art has zero utility. It's just a picture.
Well, you can buy antiques. There are less of them.
There are less of them, and it's an interesting, well, it's just basically, I'm getting to the point of, it's where people see value. I see value in the ultimate artwork that I bought. Why do I see value in that? Because I paid a guy to buy it. And so, like, to me, it feels like it was worth that because ultimately I've spent that on it. And the same concept goes for NFTs, it goes for Bitcoin as well. Like, why is Bitcoin worth money? Because people keep buying it, that's why.
It's all
and
speculative.
It's like, everything is one big Ponzi scheme is one thing that I realized. Like, if everyone starts selling the same thing, it gets crushed. But if everyone starts buying the same thing, it gets crushed. Look at the US dollar, if everyone starts selling it, price gets crushed. Like, everything is working on that same.
Okay, so here's my another question now. So, just one. Inflation. So we've got this massive inflation right now, and we've all been talking before that the bigger the inflation, the better for Bitcoin it is. Yes, what we're seeing now is completely different. Yes, but after every inflation, there is a deflation period. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's been proved through the history. We have inflation, we have deflation, we have inflation, deflation. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think that the second part of this year will be the actual deflation? Because with the Fed's hiking
No,
rates,
we're not. This is a funny question, is this? Because the Fed's raking, the Fed's doing the 0.5% a month thing. and inflation is 15%, they're not even going to get close by the end of the year. Like, we're not going to experience deflation ever. This economy is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And then eventually we'll have a new currency. And that's how things work. All fiat currency comes to an
Yeah,
end.
exactly. That they're going to try to
Take it away from me.
inflate it away. Yeah.
Take it away from me.
All right, who's in the back who wants a question? Ready to catch? I might destroy that camera.
My question's related to like price and narratives. I was just wondering to what extent you think that because we're in a bearish trend and a downward trend, that the narrative is like kind of distorted, because you can consider Bitcoin, for example, as being a risk-on or a risk-off asset, inflation hedge, conservation of energy over time, transferable all over the world. But as we're coming down, we're seeing correlations with growth stocks, basically, NASDAQ and stuff. And it seems like the news that is coming out, like we're talking about MicroStrategy, I don't know if everyone knows, but recently said that they were going to file to allow pension funds. And Fidelity did exactly the same thing in that week. And that's Fidelity. But we're not seeing that reflected at all in price. So I was wondering if you think that there's like an extent to which the narrative's being distorted just because we're in that downward trend. We've had a double top. We're kind of 2 years into a bull cycle.
Yeah, I think that Bitcoin exists not as the context, but as something present in the context. And the market exists based on the sentiment in the world. It can influence the world, but ultimately, if we're in like a very tense geopolitical climate, I think that things that might be like medium bullish catalysts, you know, this institution, that institution adds to balance sheet, they can't override the overall instability in people's minds of Bitcoin not being on their mind to put their money right now. So I think it might not be distorted as much as there's a baseline of reality in the world that then Bitcoin is built on top of, and it's going to take change in that context before things like the MicroStrategy announcement, which I think at this point even people are like, okay, MicroStrategy, whatever. But like I get you like the point with things that in a bull market would be more bullish. Now don't override what I think is an underlying panic in the world. So I think that's the context for. I don't think it's distorted. I think it is overridden.
I was going to say real quick is that during bear markets, these types of what would be considered bullish news announcements typically are seldom news announcements. It's only over a longer period of time that Fidelity actually begins getting all their customers to put Bitcoin into their pension funds, that potentially will obviously take Bitcoin off the market. And that's what we really need, is we need not just the announcements, but we need like the actual kind of end result of what those announcements will be over a longer period of time.
A thing to add to that is that the moment Fidelity gave that announcement, the next day I think they got a big discouragement for ever giving that. And then a couple of comments came on other websites regarding the actual idea of, I think Michael Saylor was actually the guy who said that it's one of the least risky ways to retire with, or something like that, which I think is also an interesting statement. But I think also in the Central African Republic, they gave this discouragement of using it as legal tender. They gave a big discouragement. At the end of the day, they're giving these announcements, but the actual Bitcoin being bought up or so is going to take a lot of time. About the distortion, yeah, partially. It's all perspective. I mean, 40,000 a little while ago was like, wow, this is amazing. Right now it's like, oh, this is really bad. But so it goes in any market, right? I mean, if the S&P goes down to levels from 8 years ago, I'd be pretty terrified, so to speak.
Yeah, hi, I have a quick question. Everyone is talking about Bitcoin. What's your take on Ether and their problems with migration?
When it comes to Ethereum, we're talking about the same thing. You're not talking about some random like shitcoin called Ether. Like we're talking about Ethereum, yeah? Yeah, good. So when it comes to Ethereum, Ethereum is the currency of not the internet, but it's like the build. It's the most popular one. Do I think Ethereum is going to be overtaken by another blockchain? No. Ultimately, it's become too popular too quickly. It's kind of like, I guess it could. I guess if you thought of Ethereum as like Windows computers and then Apple come along and they invent a better system, but ultimately Apple is still not selling as many computers as Windows. And even though I think that Apple computers are better, Windows computers are still more popular because they're more accessible. And that's why Ethereum, I think, is going to continue, because it's like 10 steps ahead on the education front. And ultimately, if you're ahead on the education front, then you're going to do a lot better. So that's kind of covering off base Ethereum kind of knowledge. And then moving on to the next part about Ethereum being slow. Ethereum is slow because there are so many people involved, and when you're so successful like Ethereum has been, to make any kind of major change to a protocol with thousands of altcoins lost off the back of it, and all of these different changes, and then you've also got to understand, like, the miners, they spent millions on hardware, like so much money on hardware to mine the actual Ethereum. So when you're talking about switching over to staking, they're going, God, no, don't do that, because this hardware is absolutely useless if you switch. Because if you're buying like specific Bitmain Ethereum miners, then you can only use those miners unless you go through some kind of expensive conversion therapy for these miners. They're absolutely useless when it comes to mining Bitcoin. They just don't work. They're a completely different machine. So that's one of the key reasons why Ethereum's been so slow to switch over, because it was too successful, too quickly. And then the problem was it grew, then the amount of energy it consumes is rising, and people are going, well, this is bad for the environment. And we know it's bad for the environment, but at the same time, there's nothing that we can do to fix it until all of these people have completely defunct hardware. And that's when I think Ethereum 2.0, so to speak, and we have full live staking on Ethereum, I think that's when that all kicks in. And that'll probably be towards next year, probably. I know it's probably planned for maybe, I don't know, June, July, something like that, but it always has been planned for June or July, and it just every year seems to be, oh, Ethereum 2.0 is launching this month. No, it's not. No, it's never launching. But yeah, I think that Ethereum for the long term is a really good currency to hold. I don't think it'll lose its utility. I think there'll be competitor currencies that come in and essentially compete with Ethereum. We already have them. We've got Avalanche, we've got all of the platform coins. Elrond, another good one. There's a few Elrond holders in this room. We're not doing as well at the moment, but you know, we'll get there in the end. It was $600, now it's what, 120, 130. It's been hovering around those horrible levels, but we bought at 6, so it's fine. Point is, there will be competitor currencies, but on the whole, I think that Ethereum will always be king. And people will always build on Ethereum because, like, they teach it in schools now. You're not going to get like Zilliqa getting taught in schools anytime soon. You'll get Ethereum taught in schools. So, and by the way, we're trying to teach things in schools ourselves. So, cryptosavingexpert.com.
All right, so guys, before we end, dear crypto community, bunch of buds across the globe, welcome back to Crypto. This was our first episode with the community live. Thank you so much for joining us. Give a round of applause to the panelists.